Hey, what's up, my friends? Well, I guess this would be an episode of Carpo After Dark, and that's a joke for anyone who may be new to the channel. I used to do these. I should say I just do them once in a while, come out front and just do an After Dark, because, there'll often be somebody who's like, why aren't you looking at the camera, It's like, well, it's kind of like doing a podcast. Think of it that way. And I'll tell you, it's easier to focus when I can look around at the beautiful sky and the trees and the breeze is blowing, and there's just something about being able to speak my mind and being focused on what's around me instead of looking at a camera in a room. But anyhow, that aside, there was just a couple things I wanted to talk about while I sit here and smoke a bowl. I've got some wonderful, I think it was some kind of, I think it was strawberry kush, or no, this is OG kush. I have two different ones. OG kush is my favorite strain of cannabis, and then I have some Crystallica extract on top of it, and shatter, and I'm in a toke bowl, and it's evening for me. It's 10 o'clock, and this is when I usually kind of kick back and I guess get ready to go to sleep, right? So anyhow, while I'm here, spit a little bit of philosophy from my randomness. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to make a video about this tomorrow, and I'll probably do a more in-depth one, so this will be kind of a ramble about it, but God, this is fascinating. I made a video about it 2 years ago, maybe. I said, are bacteria our gods? Something like that. And the video was basically, I'd been doing research on how gut bacteria affect our brains, and we all know that we have a lot of bacteria in our bodies, and I think more and more people are learning how important it is to have a good diet and a good gut-brain connection. The gut's connected to the brain through what they call the vagus nerve, and that travels all the way up, and if you don't have proper flora in your gut, which means the right bacteria, it can cause all types of problems, and I want to go into depth on that in a future video, but that's why if you take antibiotics, they don't just kill the bad bacteria, but the good too, and some people can have stomach problems after taking antibiotics, and sometimes it can take up to years for people to recover fully, depending on the person, and each person's gut flora is different, so they found that these bacteria, without them, we couldn't survive. They do all types of work in our body, including producing serotonin and dopamine, and probably all the neurotransmitters. There's still a lot to learn. We're limited in scope, but it seems that this gut-brain connection is not the only thing that's important, but viruses as well. So basically, in your body, you have 10 times more bacteria than cells. And that means that than your own cells, up to 10 times. But let's just say even if it's double, there's some conflicting, research on that. But the point is that there are more bacteria in your body than your own DNA and cells. So what does that mean? It means that we're walking bacteria factories. So the video I made was saying that perhaps they evolved us to carry them around the earth, right? So toke break, sorry. So I thought maybe they evolved us to transport them. Well, now I've taken this a step further. It just blows my mind, the kind of things that I've been assimilating into my knowledge base. And one of these is a little bit more research on Toxoplasma gondii, which is causes the condition known as toxoplasmosis. And this is a parasite, or rather a virus, that hijacks the immune system, the part of the brain that controls fear in a rat. So here's how it works. Everybody knows if you're pregnant, you shouldn't be near cats, and cat feces especially. Well, at least a lot of people, a lot of mothers, hear that if they have cats. Stay away from feces, don't clean the litter box, etc. This is because cats are the only place where this particular virus can breed, only in a cat's gut. And after they've completed their life cycle, they're excreted in cat feces. Now, they get into the soil. Now, they favor rats. They get into a rat's into their body. They go to the brain, and then they seek out the part of the brain, and they create these little lesions or cysts on the brain. They know exactly how to target the rat's fear center, and specifically for cats. And this is the thing, it modifies them to not be afraid of cats and to be sexually aroused. And they've measured this by testicle size and stuff of infected rats. Sexually aroused by the smell of cat urine. And so they go out and they look for cats through cat urine. And this is so the cats will attack and eat the rats, and thus the life cycle's continued. Now, I'm going to go into the detail on like all these different viruses and bacteria, and especially these parasites that, like cordyceps, which cause an ant to crawl to the underside of a leaf 25 centimeters off the canopy floor, then to die, and then to spread to the next group of ants. It's just freaking fascinating. So these bacteria that live in our gut help to influence our mood. Well, the question is, do these other viruses or parasites we get affect our mood? If they can modify a rat's behavior, then they can definitely modify our behavior, right? Well, fucking A right they can. Sorry, pardon my language, but it blows my mind. I'll just start off with this one guy who was talking about how he once had a doctor tell him, he said he dealt with transplant patients, organ transplants, and he said the guy one of the doctors was telling him, if you get motorcycle accident donors who come in, because they died in a motorcycle accident, he goes, make sure you check for toxoplasma, because they tend to have a really high prevalence of it in their blood. And he thought that was nothing much at the time, 25 years ago. But then it clicked, and he said, wait a minute. The newest studies show that men who were infected with toxoplasma, by the way, this is between 25 and 40% of the population, depending on where you're at, sometimes up to 75% of the population is infected with it, but being infected with it only causes mild symptoms itself. It's once it gets into your brain and lies dormant. And the question is, what's it doing when it's in your brain lying dormant? Well, it may be doing the same thing as in the rats. They've found that it can make men more not necessarily attracted, but not bothered by cat urine. And women, it can actually make them more bothered by cat urine. It has completely different effects on women. But most of all, it makes men more reckless and more likely to get in accidents. And it makes them three times more likely to be in a motorcycle accident, and 2 to 3 times more likely to drive too fast and be in a car accident. So what it does is it takes away the man's fear response to high-risk situations or scenario. And they say that might just be a random thing that it does to the man, to the human brain, because it's similar to the rat's brain, but not the same. So here we have a known virus that half the population have, that is known to affect and modify behavior in men and women, most likely, but in a different way. What does that tell us? And why is nobody talking about this? I mean, if you really think about the implications of something like this, it's fucking mind-blowing, because it's not just this one. There are several different viruses that get into animals that we've discovered, that one that's in snails that causes them to get eaten, by these birds, and this whole other life cycle. But the ones that get into the brain, there's even a wasp that stings a cockroach in the head, and it says that they'll sting for up to 3 minutes as they poke around looking for a particular part of the cockroach's brain. Then they inject the venom, causing him to be paralyzed so he can move, but he's like a zombie. And then they herd him back to the den, and then he can be eaten alive by the larvae. And there's all kinds of disgusting things in the insect kingdom like this, but the point is that this happens in mammals too, and this is known to happen. Rabies is a well-known virus that can cause all types of problems. It's amazing what rabies can do to an animal, because it triggers the part of your brain where it basically causes you to have kind of a fear or an anger response. At the same time, it goes down and enters your saliva, and at the same time it causes you um, your windpipe shuts down. It makes it so you can't eat or swallow. So it frustrates you, and it makes you go out and bite someone to spread the virus. These are intelligent viruses. These are intelligent parasites, intelligent bacteria, most likely. So the thought that occurred to me the other day was this: what if, instead of us, say, evolving to spread bacteria around, I had this idea of writing kind of a joke-like fiction story about this planet of bacteria creatures that said, we want to spread our population everywhere. How do we do that? So they program the DNA and they send it off to another planet, and then it evolves these creatures. Let's just say that the bacteria is conscious by its collective conscious. And this bacteria over time evolves animals and then eventually humans in order to develop the tools to get back out into space to spread the bacteria deep into space and elsewhere. It sounds absolutely ludicrous, but I just thought it was a fascinating idea. And who's to say it's not true? Ants are considered super intelligent. You see what they can do. They all know what they're meant to do, and it's not just ants, it's all different groups of animals and insects. And we all kind of have a genetic programming that, puts us in a certain frame of mind. I'm reading a book called Prometheus Rising right now that is fascinating. I'm going to do a video about that tomorrow too, but totally gets into the different ideas of personality and which parts we can alter and just what higher consciousness might be. And it got me thinking about the personalities, the types that we have, and how they may be affected by these parasites and these viruses. It's pretty amazing, really. And so the question that I pose is, do we really have free will? And if so, to what degree? It's enough to make you wonder. I'd say if it's not enough to make you wonder, then you're not very curious. No, but really, it's I can't wait to expound on this because I have a bunch of facts written down and figures. There were studies done in Denmark, I believe, on several thousand people regarding toxoplasma, and it seems to be tied in with schizophrenia. And it seems that schizophrenics have a higher rate of it. And it's interesting because the prevalence of this, toxoplasma is very high. A lot of people have it. In some cultures, like the tropical cultures, it's much more prevalent than in like cooler climates or moderate or temperate. And it just blew my mind when they said that, because it can make men more aggressive, and so they're leading this kind of idea that they don't really want to say. They said, could these viruses, these parasites, infect us and actually alter our culture and determine who we are as cultures? And then I started thinking about people in the South versus people up here in the North. They live in a more kind of a warmer, moister, more humid climate, which is, much of a better breeding ground for that. And I thought, could people in the South tend to be more aggressive because of that? I mean, it was just a theory. It might not even be true. Perhaps people in the South aren't more aggressive, but I just go by the policies, politics, and crime rates and things like that. But of course, that has to do with, income and all that too. But income also has to do with, the people. It's crazy to think that we might be influenced by these things enough to affect our behavior. And to me, I'm not surprised, I guess, but I don't know. It's just something I totally wanted to share because I think it's fascinating. So anyway, enough for the ramble for the evening. I do want to recommend that book, though, Prometheus Rising. It's by Robert Anton Wilson, and I'm just enthralled by it. I mean, I've heard of it, and I've wanted to read it. It's absolutely awesome. It's basically, about, exercises and thoughts about how to find you know, how to manifest your destiny, but not a self-help book. That's not even a good way to describe it. It's got like exercises and kind of realizing that, you know, we kind of manifest our desires through action and through that intention is a true thing. It's kind of like, it's funny, somebody posted something about The Secret today and how he was saying it's just kind of hokey. I can't remember the description, it was Mandarin, but it got me thinking about when I watched that and how it was easy to get intrigued by something that promises you to be able to call your wealth and have whatever you want, but the reality is that's just not, it's not what it's about. You're not after wealth and you're not after fame, you're after happiness, you're after contentment, and maybe understanding, but it's subjective. And so if you want to manifest something, manifest yourself to be happy, I guess. So I gotta go because I gotta put my kids to bed, so it was great chatting, and I'll talk to y'all on the flip side. Peace.